Gwen here, Gwendolyn here for Green15. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm an environmental scientist, and we, as well as many others, think every day is Earth Day. I'm very pleased to bring with us today Daniel Brandes. Daniel Brandes, I hope I'm saying it right, is Forest Campaign Director for Greenpeace USA. Hey, Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Gwen, and luckily my family's safe. I hope your family is safe as well.
Yes, thank you for asking. That was going to be my next question, how you're coping with this pandemic, the COVID-19, crisis. Are you able to work from home? Are you guys nice and safe?
Yeah, right now it's a feeling of gratitude, just on how that my family is safe and that we're food secure. But we are able to work. It's not as easy as it was before, obviously, with the new with the new reality.
Yes, agreed. Totally agreed. Just a little bit about Greenpeace. I work with Greenpeace New York. I volunteered with them, for 4 or 5 years now. And I love how they say it. I will paraphrase this. They will never stop fighting for a greener, healthier world for our oceans, forests, and food and animal species. Now, for those that don't know, Greenpeace was started back in 1971. A small group of Canadian activists got a fairly large fishing vessel, and they sailed from Vancouver, Canada, trying to get to Alaska to bring awareness of nuclear testing that was going up there. They unfortunately were intercepted by the Coast Guard. They were stopped, but they were able to bring worldwide attention to nuclear testing that was going on up there, and obviously pollution to our oceans. Now, as Forest Campaign Director, one thing that we've read, and I like to tell people as many times as much as I can, is that, for instance, in the Amazon in Brazil, the Amazon forest, they say the forest is considered the lungs of the earth. And as campaign director, how do you try to bring that message across to people about forests?
What I like to do is I like to bring the science into our conversations about the forest. And so we all understand the urgency behind the climate crisis, but what a lot of folks aren't aware of is that ending deforestation is just as critical as ending the use of fossil fuels in order to reach a safe climate for all.
Right. They are our lungs, and we want to take care of our lungs. I mean, again, going back to this pandemic, we know the coronavirus attacks the lungs. We need air to breathe. Has Greenpeace changed their fundraising efforts, in correlation with the pandemic? Are they doing more things online? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are definitely switching to an online-only approach for our supporters, and also we're trying to develop ways that supporters can join and amplify the urgency and help work with us to affect change. And so it requires some pivoting because we thrived off of the face-to-face, and we're doing what we can do now to keep our supporters safe, but also reach a safe climate in the process.
Sure. Now, I know at In a Green Minute, we do an annual fundraiser for Greenpeace. And so, when I did it again this year, it's still going on, by the way, because the volume has been a little bit lower than usual. I was noticing the minimum donation was $5. And I said, you know what? Especially now, a lot of people aren't going to want to give up $5. I wonder if they can lower it to $1. So I reached out to Greenpeace a couple of times. I haven't heard back from them. But do you think that might be an avenue, that something they might think about or at least consider?
Yeah, I'll definitely raise that. I believe right now you can do a custom donation. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think the thing is it's not as much as the individual amounts, but the fact of how many people are actively giving. There's a lot of ways to give and be active, and everyone can do their part. But there is something to show that they are, to support the ability for my staff and others to bring your voice to the halls of power, whether that's a corporation or a government, or to do our investigations in the field that shed a light on the reality of what's happening in Brazil or Indonesia. Those are things that you are all taking a part of when you give to Greenpeace. We are watchdog. And it's a group effort.
Right. It's funny. Like, a lot of my friends and stuff, they not academics or scientists, just like regular people, my friends or relatives, they know who Greenpeace is. They just don't know what they do. And when I talk to them about donating, they're like, $5. And they're like, well, will you do $1? And they're like, yeah. And $1, yeah, it's $1, but $1 adds up, as you well know.
Yeah.
Um, with respect to the states, now, are there any? You're in California, correct?
Yeah.
Are there any? Are there any states that stand out to you in terms of their either their campaigning or their awareness campaigns, or just them getting out into the community in a grassroots activism effort with respect to forests? Because I know in New York and New Jersey we have, well, especially in New York State, New Jersey, not so much when it comes to forests. But places like California, obviously Washington State, those are bigger states with a lot more forests.
Yeah, well, our campaign at Greenpeace, one of the things that we do in terms of that makes us different from other groups that work on forests is that we really try to leverage our global presence, because forest is a
Mhm.
global present is a global issue. It's a global
Right,
threat. So not just the impacts, but also why are forests being cut down? They're not just being cut down for fun in Brazil. They're being cut down for fun for timber that is going to the U.S. It's being cut down to raise cattle, to
sure.
grow for animal feed. And so that's why, when we engage in forests, and whether or not we're talking about palm oil that's driving forest destruction, we try to bring that message on the street. And New York has been a very strong place where a lot of our activist base have been very vocal about the threats reaching the forest. Because the thing is if you live in New York, you actually have a big role to play. One thing
Uh-huh.
that a few people realize is that timber that's in a lot of the decking and the boardwalks along the Jersey Shore, and then also in landmarks like the High Line, that's tropical timber. It's Ipe timber that comes from the Amazon. So your tax dollars actually have a role to
Wow.
play in determining how the forest is cut, and whether or not the forest is cut illegally and done at the detriment of local communities. So you actually have a
Right.
role to play. I believe New York City has a tropical timber policy that has requirements on the timber that the city buys as the number one importer of tropical timber, and that exists at the city government level. Some states like California and potentially New York, the state government might someday put restrictions on the products they buy and whether or not they're driving rainforest destruction. So there's a big role for all of us to play as the major market for these high risk commodities and products.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow. So we definitely have to stay informed with our government, especially our local government, with respect to these types of things. I mean, I'm on the Jersey boardwalk all the time, and if I know that wood's coming from someplace illegal, somebody's going to know about it.
Yeah, there's a lot. We have a lot of reports that we've done, sending people into the field. I myself have been in the field. We'll fly over. We'll talk to the communities being impacted. At one point, we even put remote trackers in a logging truck that was bringing logs from indigenous lands, and then we try to track those logs to see where that shipment was going. And that's the sort of work that we do. It's our way of bearing witness. It's our way of it's our way of doing civil disobedience. It's sometimes it's individuals who I work with who are volunteers that work with us that take risks to their either legal risks or risks to their own bodies in order to get that message out to address what's threatening the planet's climate.
Well, it sounds like you're doing an excellent job. What about, I know Greenpeace has worked in the past or worked with the Indigenous Peoples Policy as well as the Vision for Black Lives platform. When I saw that, I was really interested, and I wanted to know if on your end you get to work with any of those policies.
Yeah, so it's the Indigenous people's rights is a North Star for the forest campaigns, because and I think a lot of people, it's pretty obvious for a lot of people that Indigenous peoples are the best stewards of the forest. And it's
Yeah.
not just our instinct that tells us that. It's in history. There's also empirical data. They looked at the health of forests where Indigenous land rights are recognized, and they do much better than other forests around the world. So, and Indigenous people's rights are under threat right now in the current context in Brazil, and that's something that's a constant. It's a constant concern for us, and and we we have Indigenous allies in Brazil and Canada, and in Indonesia, and also in Cameroon, that we work closely with in order to see if we can help amplify their voice in places that have heard of us, but they might not have heard of of the Munduruku, for example, which is
Right.
a nation that we work with closely. And then there's also in the Brazil context, which I'm most familiar with, there's also another type of traditional community called the Quilombola, which and Quilombos, for those that don't know, are Afro-descendant communities from who've been liberated from bondage and forced labor. And so there's communities that have their roots, hundreds of years back. And that also play an important role in the natural environments for, where they are. And last year, we released a case study, not in the Amazon, but outside the Amazon, in the grasslands called the Cerrado, focusing on an Afro-descendant Quilombola community who was struggling with the threat of expanding agribusiness that was destroying the environment and also threatening their livelihoods.
Okay. I know with Greenpeace, especially in New York, as well as nationally and internationally, their drive for inclusion and diversity is amazing. Many corporations could take note from Greenpeace, which is one of the things that drove me to them and wanted to try and participate and help out with fundraising, and as well as when they go out in their different campaigns and events are also diverse and inclusive. That's probably one of the best things about Greenpeace, and I just love that. I love this organization. Single-use plastic, just to change gears for a bit, because I know in New York it is a big thing, and I am a huge anti-litter junkie. I'm like, no, 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 and that's also a big problem in New York with the litter, and it's usually plastic or something plastic related. Do you know anything about the single-use platform, as well as where it's going? I mean, I know right now things are pretty much on hold, but any plans for the future to continue that campaign?
Well, in that campaign, it's there. My colleagues have been really raising the alarm bells about this because the plastic doesn't go away, as you know,
Right.
and the attempts to thwart the single-use economy has been sabotaged by the plastics industry, which is the petroleum industry. It is the big oil companies behind the scenes, really trying to capitalize on this crisis. And trying to disrupt single-use plastics bans. And I struggle with it, just as someone who I try to use at least single-use anything. In the forest world, if you phase out of plastic for paper, that's not much better, because then you're putting you have this other demand on the forest, on other ecosystems. So the best solution is to end all single use altogether and limit it as much as possible. And it's really hard these days. And I personally, I try to do things like bag my groceries, outside the store or in my car, because they don't let you bring your reusable bags in. I also try to clean it to take care of myself and anyone who's going to come across it. But it's something that we're figuring things out, and I think we do need to be vocal. Like, there's a reason. Like, just because the crisis is here doesn't mean that the plastics is no longer going to end in the ocean, or it also, the plastics became recyclable, which they haven't been recyclable for some time, which is why we try to campaign for their phase out altogether.
Yeah, ultimately phase out, but I personally and professionally believe at least recycling is a mid-step. It's something. Most people know the term recycling, and 50 years ago they didn't know that. So it is. You can integrate it in and then go from there to hopefully phase it all out. I know what you mean. When I do have to use plastic, I just use it until it rips. I mean, we still have water bottles. My mom is like yelling at me because I have all these water bottles because I keep reusing them until I can't use them again. I mean, it's not much, but it's something.
But and I think when you're showing people that you're making that choice, I think that is contagious, and that is important for behavioral change. I just have to say about the recycling, like, we did release an investigation about a month ago that shows that a lot of the recycling isn't actually recycled as much as the plastics industry would want you to believe. And so it was really surprising, which is why we just need to reduce our consumption of plastics altogether, because all the different plastics are treated different, and not all of them are actually following through when you look under the hood and follow and follow where this stuff is going.
Exactly. Well, listen, Daniel, we're almost out of time. I do know also, real quick, Greenpeace is going to try and shore up the Green New Deal for us.
Yes, the Green New Deal and a just transition. We need to, reach the world we want to be in at the end of this. Normal wasn't normal, and we will be in a new place. And the thing is, we need to do it in a way that it has justice embedded into that. There's a lot of we have to change our society. We have to reinvent our economy, and we need to do so in a way that treats people fairly. And that's why the Green New Deal is a really important framework for us to work with.
Excellent. And how can we reach you online, either Greenpeace in general? How can people reach you?
If you text 877, if you text Greenpeace to 877-877, it's a great way to stay in touch with us, and we'll follow up. We will keep you up to date when we find out the next thing that the bad guys don't want you to know.
Well, listen, Daniel, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank the people that joined us. My name is Gwen Lynn. This is Green15, and you can reach me on social media at In a Green Minute or email at inagreenminute@yahoo.com. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you.